Now he always talks it up about supporting a strong dollar, but it's like a shoe salesman telling you that he doesn't sell shoes. That's his job. Bernanke's job is to prop up the system, and he does that by printing money, by debasing the currency. The Fed's actually in business to print money. Look at the value of the US dollar since 1971 and tell me that the Fed supports a strong dollar. It's doublespeak. If he supported a strong dollar, he wouldn't have dropped interest rates to 0%. If he supported a strong dollar, he wouldn't have blown away trillions bailing out the investment bank's derivatives casino. If he supported a strong dollar, he wouldn't be engaged in the policy of quantitative easing. What's quantitative easing? Well, let's take a look back at this Ponzi scheme system that we've got. The situation in the States right now is that there isn't enough demand for new debt from the private sector. So the government needs to come in and pick up the slack by borrowing enough new debt, or pink blocks, to spend into the economy as stimulus so that the existing debts can be serviced. If China, Japan, the oil producers, or anyone doesn't lend the money, then the Ponzi scheme collapses, right? Well, not exactly. This is where quantitative easing comes into play. When there aren't enough willing lenders to buy US treasuries, the US government goes to its own central bank and says, "Ben, buddy, we're broke and no one wants to lend us anymore." So Bernanke just creates the money out of thin air, and the government spends it into the economy, and the Ponzi scheme just keeps on going. The Fed purchased nearly 50% of net new treasuries in the second quarter of 2009. If it wasn't for quantitative easing, and well, the bailouts as well, the Ponzi scheme would have already collapsed. The system would be in bankruptcy already, and the dollar would still have value. Then we could go about making the appropriate reforms, but with quantitative easing, the Ponzi scheme doesn't collapse. The Fed just creates more and more money as this chart just explodes up into the stratosphere. What's a dollar worth to you when Bernanke is creating 100 billion here and 100 billion there with a flick of his magic wand? There are only two options here. We either put the Ponzi scheme through bankruptcy and begin with the reforms, or we maintain the status quo, which leads to the collapse of the dollar. Now, it's because of Bernanke that we can bet heavily on the collapse of the dollar. You see, out of the two options that we have here, the collapse of the dollar is actually Bernanke's preference. Why do I say that? Well, if we were to put the system through bankruptcy, the Fed and its Wall Street member banks would be put out of business. But if we maintain the status quo and print money to prop up the system, the Fed and the Wall Street banks stay in business. They earn interest off all the fresh money being created, and they get to make an absolute killing trading the collapse of the dollar. The investment banks and their hedge fund buddies will be all over this like leeches, sucking the last drop of blood out of the great American Republic as it keels over under hyperinflation and bankruptcy and dies. Will the sheep put up a fight for their sovereign currency, or will they be fleeced by the Wall Street banksters who have hijacked Washington? We'll soon find out.